Hi everyone, it's Miss Sims here, and today we get to finish our canal house project, which I am really excited about. I know these are going to look super cool. Today's all about adding colors and texture, and it's another really long project. So we're going to go ahead and get started and not waste any more time. By the end of today, your canal project might look something like this with lots of different colors and textures. As usual, we have two goals. The first one is to add texture to our artwork. This is a really important element, and we're going to do this by using crayon. If you add at least two big details in crayon to every object, you will have a lot of texture. We're also going to practice a resist in artwork. This basically just means that we're using two materials that don't mix well together, which is water and oil, watercolors and crayons, because crayons are oily. You'll be able to see both if you overlap them. We're going to need our paper with our buildings, crayons, watercolors, a paintbrush, and a cup of water. If you do not have crayons and so you can't do the resist, that is okay, but don't try and do it then with markers or anything else because it won't work. The only reason the resist is going to work and help us with the texture is because of the oil in the crayon, and markers and colored pencils just don't have the same type of oil. So if you only have watercolors, you do not have crayons or oil pastels at home, then you're going to skip the crayon part. You're going to paint everything, which is the second half of this video, and then you can go over in marker or colored pencil with your detail. Just don't do it first. Okay, most of us should be starting with a page that looks something like this with our crayons out. You did get crayons in your supply distribution, so you should have some even if they're not super sharp anymore. That's okay. Basically, what we're going to do is add a bunch of different colors and color in certain details. Maybe we draw some stripes on our boats. We can do anything we want. It can be fully colored in, or it can be just partially colored in a pattern. Make sure that you add little ripples down by the water and that you're adding as many patterns and definitely coloring in any small details like curtains or things in the windows, because that is going to help you a lot as you start to watercolor. I promise you, the more crayon details you add now, the cooler your project will look in the end. Go ahead and pause this video here and then go ahead and get your watercolors out when you are done with all of your crayon details. Just so you know, I'm going to move my water cup out of the way a little bit so you can see the picture better, but I do have water there that I'm dipping into a lot. Make sure before we start painting you warm up any of your colors in your watercolor palette first. Now basically there are two different things you're doing with your watercolors. Number one is you are neatly watercoloring to get all of those details, kind of like what I'm doing inside these windows or any small details that you want a specific color. Another thing you're going to do is the resist, and the resist is where you watercolor over the top of the crayon on purpose. So say one of your buildings has a pattern, you are going to watercolor over the top of that building, and that way your crayon will show through underneath the watercolor and it will look really cool and add a lot of texture. If you start to get too much watercolor in one space and they start to bleed together, we don't want that to happen to our colors, so go ahead and move to a different area of your paper and come back to that section later. As you're going to save your sky and your canal colors for last because they have a little bit of a different way of mixing colors together. So when you are ready to work on your sky, the first thing you're going to do is go back to that blue color and start adding different amounts of water, kind of doing a swirly pattern to make it look a little cloudy. You can also add tiny bits of black, and that way it will make it look more dark if you want it to be rainy, but only add a very little bit. When you do your water, you are going to let it dry a little bit first and then add some of the color of whatever color boat you have. It'll make it look like a reflection. So for example, this boat is kind of like a reddish with yellow on top, so I added red close to the water on the boat and then yellow further away so it looks like it's reflecting those colors across the canal. This will help add more detail, mix colors a little bit. Just make sure that you are rinsing your paintbrush out really well so that your colors don't get mixed inside of your paint palette. When you finish, don't forget to clean your paints and your paintbrush. And that's it for this lesson. I know it was a really big project, but I cannot wait to see what you came up with. Don't forget to post a picture so that I can see, and I will see you next week for art.